Today's reading is 2 Samuel verses 20 to 25. Well, 24 is the end. Sheba rebels against David. Now a troublemaker named Sheba, son of Bilkari, a Benjamite, happened to be there. He sounded the trumpet and shouted, "We have no share in David, no part in Jesse's son. Every man to his tent, Israel." So all the men of Israel deserted David to follow Sheba, son of Bilkri. But the men of Judah stayed by their king all the way from the Jordan to Jerusalem. When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace and put them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but had no sexual relations with them, and they were kept in confinement till the day of their death, living as widows. Now the king said to Amasa, Suman, the men of Judah, to come to me within 3 days and be here yourself. But when Amasa went to summon Judah, he took longer than the time the king had set for him. David said to Abishai, now Sheba, son of Bilkri, will do us more harm than Absalom did. Take your master's men and pursue him, or he will find fortified cities and escape from us. So Joab's men and the Kerethites and Pelethites, all the mighty warriors went out under the command of Abishai and marched out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, son of Bilkri. When they were at the great rock of Gilboa, Amasa came to meet them, and Joab was wearing his military tunic, and strapped over it at his waist was a belt with a dagger in its sheath. And as he stepped forward, it dropped out of the sheath. Joab said to Amasa, "How are you, my brother?" Then Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand and kissed him. Amasa was not on his guard against the dagger of Joab's hand, and Joab plunged it into his belly, and his intestines spilled out on the ground. Without being stabbed again, Amasa died. Then Joab and his brother Abishai pursued Sheba, son of Bilkri. One of Joab's men stood beside Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab, whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." And Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the middle of the road. And the man said to all the troops, saw that all of the troops came to a halt there. And when he realized that everyone who had come up to Amasa stopped, he dragged him from the road into a field and threw a garment over him. After Amasa had been removed from the road, everyone went on with Joab to pursue Sheba, son of Bilkri. Sheba passed through all of the tribes of Israel to Abel, Beth, Mecca, and through the entire region to the Bilkrites, who gathered together and followed him. All the troops with Joab came and besieged Sheba at Abel, Beth, Mecca, and they built a siege ramp up to the city, and it stood against the outer fortifications. While they were battering the wall to bring it down, a wise woman called from the city, Listen, tell Joab to come here so I can speak to him." He went toward her, and she asked, "Are you Joab?" "I am," he answered. And she said, "Listen to what your servant has to say." "I'm listening," he said. She continued, "Long ago they used to say, 'Get your answer at Abel,' and that settled it. We are the peaceful and faithful in Israel. You are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why do you want to swallow up the Lord's inheritance?" "Far be it from me," Joab replied. "Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That is not the case. A man named Sheba, son of Bilkri, from the hill country of Ephraim, has lifted up his hand against the king and against David. Hand over this one man, and I'll withdraw from the city. The woman said to Joab, his head will be thrown to you from the wall. And then the woman went to all of the people with her wise advice, and they cut off the head of Sheba, son of Bilkri, and threw it to Joab. So he sounded the trumpet, and his men dispersed from the city, each returning to his home, and Joab went back to the king in Jerusalem. David's officials. Joab over Israel's entire army, Ben-Aniah, son of Jehoiada, went over to the Kerethites and Petherites, and Adoniram was in charge of forced labor. Jehoshaphat, son of Eliud, was recorder. Shiva was secretary. Zadok and Abiathar were priests, and Ira and Jerite was David's priest. The Gibeonites avenged. At the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years. So David sought the face of the Lord. The Lord said, it is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death. The king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel, but were survivors of the Amorites. And the Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to annihilate them. David asked the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? How shall I make atonement for that you will bless the Lord's inheritance? The Gibeonites answered him, we have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death. What do you want me to do for you? David asked. They answered the king, as for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be given to us to be killed, and their bodies exposed before the Lord at Gilboa of Saul, and the Lord's chosen one. So the king said, I will give them to you. The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of an oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Amari, Mephibosheth, and 2 sons of Ahaz's daughter Rizbah, whom she had borne to Saul, together with the 5 sons of Saul's daughter Merab, who she had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, and Metholathite. He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed them and exposed their bodies to a hill before the Lord. All 7 of them fell together, and they were put to death during the first days of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning. Rizbah, daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock from the beginning of the harvest till the rain poured down from the heavens on the bodies. She did not let the birds touch them by day or the wild animals by night. When David was told what Aiah's daughter Rizbah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went out and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the cities of Jabesh Gilead, and they had stolen their bodies from the public square at Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down on Gilboa. David brought the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been killed and exposed were gathered up. They buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in a tomb of Saul's father Kish at Zelah in Benjamin, and did everything the king commanded. After that, God answered prayer in behalf of the land. Wars against the Philistines. Once again, there was a battle between the Philistines and Israel. David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rahab, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels, and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck out with us to battle so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished. In the course of time, there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob, and at that time, Sibbecai and Hushathite killed Saph, one of the descendants of Rapha. In another battle with the Philistines of Gob, Elani, son of Jar, the Benjamite, killed the brother of Goliath, the Gilite, who had a spear with a shaft like the weaver's rod. In still another battle which took place at Gath, there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He was descended from Rapha. When he taunted Israel, Jonathan, son of Shimea, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were descendants of Rapha in Gath, and they fell at the hands of David and his men. David's song of praise, verse 22. David sang to the Lord the words of his song when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation. He is my stronghold, my refuge, and my Savior. From violent people you save me. I call to you, Lord, who is worthy of praise. You have been saved from my enemies. The waves of death swirled about me. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me, and the cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called on the Lord. I called out to my God. From his temple, he heard my voice. My cries came to his ears. The earth trembled and quaked. The foundations of the heavens shook. They trembled because he was angry. Smoke rose from his nostrils, consuming fire came from his mouth, burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his canopy around him, the dark rain clouds of the sky. Out of the brightness of his presence, bolts of lightning blazed forth. The Lord thundered then from heaven, and the voice of the Most High resounded. He shot his arrows and scattered the enemy. With great bolts of lightning he routed them. The valley of the seas were exposed, and the foundations of the earth laid bare. At the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast of breath from his nostrils, he reached down from on high and took hold of me and drew me out of the deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes who were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my disaster, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord has dealt with me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanliness of my hands, he has rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord. I am not guilty of turning from my God. All his laws are before me. I have not turned away from his decrees. I have been blameless before him and have kept myself from sin. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanliness in his sight. To the faithful, you show yourself faithful. To the blameless, you show yourself blameless. To the pure, show yourself pure. To the devious, you show yourself shrewd. You save the humble, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them low. You, Lord, are my lamp. The Lord turns my darkness into light. With your help, I can advance against a troop. With my God, I can scale a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. He shields all who take refuge in him. For who is God beside the Lord, and who is the rock except our God? It is God who arms me with strength and keeps my way secure. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer, and he causes me to stand on the heights. He trains my hand for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You make your saving help my shield. Your help has made me great to provide a broad path for my feet, so that my ankles do not give way. I pursued my enemies and crushed them. I did not turn back till they were destroyed. I crushed them completely, and they could not rise. They fell beneath my feet. You armed me with strength for battle. You humbled my adversaries before me. You made my enemies turn their backs in flight and destroyed my foes. You cried for help, but there was no one to save them. To the Lord he did not come, he did not answer. I beat them as fine as the dust of the earth. I pounded and trampled them like the mud in the streets. You have delivered me from the attacks of the people. You have preserved me as the head of nations. People I do not know now serve me. Foreigners cower before me. And as soon as they hear of me, they obey me. They all lose heart. They come trembling from their strongholds. The Lord lives. Praise be to my rock. Exalted be my God, the rock of my Savior. He is the God who avenges me. He puts the nations under me. He set me free from my enemies. You exalted me above my foes. From violent man you rescued me. Therefore I will praise you, Lord, among the nations. I will sing the praises of your name. He gives his king great victories. He shows unfailing kindness to his anointed, to David and to his descendants forever. David's last words, chapter 23. These are the last words of David, the inspired utterance of David, son of Jesse, the utterance of a man exalted by the Most High, a man appointed by God, anointed by God of Jacob, and the hero of Israel's songs. The Spirit of the Lord spoke through me. His word was on my tongue. The God of Israel spoke. The rock of Israel said to me, when one rules over people in righteousness, when he rules in the fear of God, he is like the light of the morning at sunrise, on a cloudless morning, like the brightness after rain that brings grass from the earth. If my house were not right with God, surely I would not have made me an everlasting covenant, arranged and secured in every part. He would not bring to fruition my salvation and grant me every desire. But evil men are all to be cast aside, but like thorns, which are not gathered with the hand. Whoever touches thorns uses a tool of iron or a shaft of a spear. They are burned up where they lie. David's mighty warriors. These are the names of David's mighty warriors: Josabed, Basabeth, Tekemon was chief of the three. He raised his spear against 800 men whom he killed in one encounter. Next to him was Eleazar, son of Dode, and Ahonite. As one of the three mighty warriors, he was with David when they taunted the Philistines, gathered at Pas Damian for battle, and then the Israelites retreated. But Eleazar stood his ground and struck down the Philistines till his hand grew tired and froze to the sword. The Lord brought him about him a great victory that day. The troops returned to Eleazar, but only to strip the dead. Next to him was Shaman, son of Agi, and a Hayrite. When the Philistines banded together at a place where there was a field full of lentils, Israel's troops fled from them. But Shaman took his stand in the middle of the field, and he defeated it and struck his Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. During the harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief warriors came down to David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. And at that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 mighty warriors broke through the Philistines' lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. "Far be from me, Lord, to do this," he said. "It is not the blood of men who went at risk of their lives." And David would not drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty warriors. Abishai, the son of Joab, son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 3. He raised his spear against 300 men whom he killed, and so he became famous as the 3. He was not held in greater honor than the 3. He became their commander, even though he was not included among them. A valiant warrior from Kabzeel performed great exploits. He struck down Moab's 2 mightiest warriors, and he went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. And he struck down a huge Egyptian. Although the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, Benaiah went down against him with a club. He snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. Such were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He too was as famous as the 3 mighty warriors. He was held in greater honor than any of the 30, and he was not included among the 3. And David put him in charge of his bodyguard. And the 30 were Ashiah, brother of Joab, Elinam, son of Dodo from Bethlehem, Shamian, the Herodite, Elkit, the Herodite, Helaz, the Peletite, Ira, son of Ikish from Tekoa, Ebenezer from Anathos, Sibekai, the Hushaite, Zaman, the Analite, and the Netophathite, Hiel, son of Bahan, the Netophathite, Itha, son of Rabah from Gibeah in Benjamin, Benaiah the Parathonite, Hittite from the ravens of Gash, Aban the Abathite, Esmereth the Berathumite, Elibia and Shalabon the Shalabonite, the sons of Jashan, Jonathan son of Shamite the Herite, and Ahim son of Shera the Herite, Ephlonite son of Eshbai the Malachite, Elam son of Atophio the Gilonite, Hezro the Carmelite, Parai the Abrite, Eagle son of Nathan from Zobah, the son of Hagri, Zikli the Ammonite, Nahari the Berothite, the armor bearer of Job, son of Zerah, Ira the Irite, Gareb the Irite, Uriah the Hittite. There were 37 in all. David rules the fighting men. Again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, "Go and take a census of Israel." Of Israel and Judea. So the king said to Joab and the army commanders with him, "Go throughout the tribes of Israel from Dan to Beersheba and enroll the fighting men so that I may know how many there are." But Joab replied to the king, "May the Lord your God multiply the troops 100 times over, and may the eyes of my lord the king see it. But why does my lord the king want to do such a thing?" The king's word, however, overruled Joab and the army commanders, so they left the presence of the king to enroll the fighting men of Israel. After crossing the Jordan, they camped at Aroer, south of the town of Gorge, and went through Gad and on to Jazer, and they went to Gilead, the region of Tatim and Hadshi, and on the Dan-Jan round towards Sidon. They went toward the fortress of Tyre and all of the towns of the Hivites and Canaanites, and finally went on to Beersheba in the Negev of Judah. After that, they had gone through the entire land. They came back to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days. Joab reported the number of fighting men to the king in Israel. There were 800,000 able-bodied men who could handle a sword in Judea, 500,000. David was conscientious stricken after he had counted the fighting men, and he said to the Lord, "I have sinned greatly in what I have done. Now, Lord, I beg you, take away the guilt of your servant. I have done a very foolish thing." Before David got up the next morning, the word of the Lord had come to Gad, the prophet, David's seer. "Go and tell David, this is what the Lord said. I am giving you 3 options. Choose one of them for me to carry out against you." So Gad went to David and said to him, "Shall there come on you 3 years of famine in your land, or 3 months of fleeing from your enemy while they pursue you, or 3 days of plague in your land? Now then, think it over and decide. I should answer the one who sent me." David said to Gad, "I am in great distress. Let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is great. But do not let me fall into the human hands." So the Lord sent a plague on Israel from that morning until the end of the time designated, and 7,000 of the people from Dan and Beersheba died. When the angel stretched out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord resented concerning the disaster and said to the angel who was afflicting the people, "Enough, withdraw your hand." The angel of the Lord was then at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. When David saw the angel who was striking down the people, he said to the Lord, "I have sinned. I, a shepherd, have done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? Let your hand fall on me and my family." David builds an altar. On that day, Gad went to David and said to him, "Go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." So that David went up as the Lord had commanded through Gad. When Araunah saw the king and his officials coming toward him, he went out and bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. Araunah said, "Why has my lord the king come to his servant to buy your threshing floor?" David answered, "So I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague of the people may be stopped." Araunah said to David, "Let my lord the king take whatever he wishes and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offering, and here is the threshing sledges and the ox yoke for the wood. Your Majesty," Araunah gives all this to the king. Araunah said to him, "May the Lord your God accept you." But the king replied to Araunah, "No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing." So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen and paid 50 shekels of silver for them. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. But the Lord answered his prayer in behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped. Thanks be to God.